Hey everyone, it's Thorn. Sorry, I had this grand plan for like getting into a rhythm with one video a week and like Saturday mornings being my day. And then I traveled and I even had like saved videos that I had all set to premiere like while I was gone. But our trip ended up, it got a little wonky at the end because of COVID. It ended up needing to be extended and things just were stressful in any way. I didn't care about YouTube. The end. Whatever. I'm gonna try to get back into the rhythm of weekly videos beginning in June. But in the meantime, here is a book video. I've been posting about some of the bookstores I was visiting in the UK and some of the purchases I was making, and folks were excited about it. Obviously, I acquired a lot of books. That was actually the goal of the trip. Other people were there to sightsee. To me, a visit to the UK, especially to London, is 100% a book buying venture. That is why I am there. So I had it planned, right? Like, it's actually cheaper to just bring a second suitcase and pay an additional checked bag fee than it is to mail books back. So like, I had this worked out. I'm not going to show you everything because we would be here for hours and that would be terrible and I would lose my voice and you would be really bored, because I'm not just an esoteric book collector. I collect books in a number of genres, but I'm going to show you some of the ones that I picked up that might be of interest. I had originally tried to record this and was making like little kind of intros and bits of information about each book, but honestly it was a little bit too long, so I'm going to allow you to just Google some of the things. I have not read any of these yet anyway, so it's not like I'm even the most qualified person to tell you about the book. This is just a little bit of show and tell, and I'll tell you maybe why I picked it up and why I thought it was interesting. Hopefully you can discern a pattern though here. My interests are pretty broad, but generally speaking, when I am talking about esoteric books, the ones that are the most interesting to me are the ones that depict individual human lives. I'm interested less and less as I get older, less and less in magical technique. Like, I really don't read a lot of grimoires. I'm usually not very interested in like how-to books. I'm much more invested in what people think magicians do, what people think witchcraft is and how it works, where it comes from, and then examinations of groups of people or individual people actually doing whatever the magical thing is. It's maybe more of like an anthropological perspective, which I think makes sense just because like my own training is in ethnography, and like it's one thing to read a book about a thing and how it should be done versus a person actually interpreting it for themselves and doing it. It's one of the reasons why I love YouTube so much, and why I don't really follow and subscribe to like how-to witchcraft accounts. I'm much more interested in people posting about their personal practices. That tells me a lot more, because even if we're all reading the same books, we're necessarily interpreting them differently and we're doing different things with them based on our circumstances. So when I'm shopping for books, I'm particularly interested in people either writing about themselves and their practice, or sort of presuming to write about other people with greater and lesser degrees of accuracy or fairness. And that's kind of regardless of tradition and regardless of time period. I'm just really interested in like how people decide what witchcraft and magic and the occult are, and then detail like how they see them playing out in real life. So yeah, beyond that, traveling, obviously books are expensive and they're really heavy. So I focused on things that were signed or out of print, or like limited releases that are just really hard to get in the US, or at least really hard to get for me. And that category gets bigger and bigger as shipping gets more expensive. So like Troy books, for example, are now a lot more difficult to get than they used to be, just because like I think distribution is more limited and shipping is just so exorbitant. So anyway, Vivian Crowley's new book, Wild Wants. There's a lot of autobiography in here, which is what I'm really excited about. I think Vivian Crowley is hella rad, and I'm pumped about her writing about her life. The New Forest by Vicky Bramshaw kind of breaks the rule that I just told you. This one, this was actually given to me by Sarita Dieste of Avalonia, the publisher of this book. Obviously, like Wicca purports to come from the New Forest, etc., etc. This is a book about folklore, traditions, and charms of that region. And obviously, you don't turn down a free book. So I'm really excited, and big thanks to Sarita. She and Avalonia put out a lot of really cool stuff, so I'm pumped about this. Light from the Shadows, a mythos of modern traditional witchcraft by Gwyn. Here is, first of all, like the Kapelban books are getting so that they're very difficult to find, so I probably would have gotten it no matter what. But again, like here is, you know, an authentic account of like a real authentic witchcraft, an inside account of traditional witchcraft as it is practiced today by several covens and clans across Britain and how it compares with modern Wicca. I'm very interested in particular, without making a value judgment about this, because honestly, like that to me is a lot less interesting, but how traditions of traditional witchcraft, whatever that mean, establish themselves very frequently by asserting that they aren't doing Wicca. Like that seems to be like the number one rule of a lot of these things, is like the first thing you must know is that it's not Wicca. So I'm interested to see what that looks like in this case. How do people conceive of what is authentic, what is real? Again, not because I'm invested in any one tradition of witchcraft or Wicca being more realer or authentic than any other. I'm interested in the arguments that individual people make about their own practices. So super pumped about that. A Spell in the Wild by Alice Tarbuck. This is one that's been on my radar for the better part of the year. Alice Tarbuck is lovely on Twitter, and I heard a lot of really good things about this book when it came out. I was really pumped to pick up a copy in Edinburgh. Here Be Magic by Melissa Symes. So this is an account, if you're familiar with Charles Cardell, this is an investigation, well, a collection of, I guess, writings about the Coven of Otho, right, the people and practices of the Coven of Otho. And this is another new release. I think it's with Thoth Publications, but there was a pre-order that was going around for this that I missed, and I was excited to find a signed copy at Atlantis. Really pumped because, again, like here's another, like there's a lot of drama that happens here, like with Gardner and Valiente, and kind of like that moment when the witchcraft revival is really hot. So getting an additional perspective, another take on that time period is really exciting. Hermetic Fictions. This is an academic text. Some of you may know that one of my master's degrees is in literature, and I'm really interested in how one of the ways that we construct like authenticity in religion as a whole, whether that's some kind of witchcraft or whatever. Here we're talking about alchemy. It's easy to forget or overlook how often like those constructions are dependent on the pop culture of the day, particularly the novel. We talk a lot about like how people in like during the 20th century occult revival, like these orders that they were joining and like the fellow occultists they were hanging out with. But it's pretty infrequent that we talk about the novels that they were consuming and the literature they were reading, and that was just as influential. So really excited to pick up this book, Alchemy and Irony in the Modern Novel. The Voice of the Priestess, Ipsita Roy Chakravarti, who is a Wiccan priestess in India. Very excited. This looks like it has a lot of poetry. It is signed. Just bits about her own tradition and her own work being Wiccan in India. I think that it's easy to look at a tradition, right? And Wicca in particular, I think, is a good example of this. It's easy to look at a tradition and focus on the loudest voices. and think about like how we stereotype a tradition. In Wicca's case, that's usually like young women, particularly in the United States, like on the internet, not really reading very well, and like doing things that are like inauthentic or insincere or whatever. And forget that we're talking about a world religion. Like, we're talking about different peoples all over the planet doing a tradition and potentially doing it really differently. And I'm excited to get a perspective like from a country that people don't even think about when they're thinking about something like Wicca. So super pumped about that. What Maketh the Witch? The Origin and Evolution of Magical Intent. Elisa Mary Gray. Again, this looks like another example of, I mean, what we'd think of as like an introductory book or a how-to, a history perhaps, by somebody with a stake in constructing a particular kind of authentic witchcraft. So again, like, I'm not interested in stuff like this because I'm interested in like what the real witchcraft is, but rather like what people think witchcraft is and what we do with that. Moongazers and Trailblazers, Creative Dynamics in Low Country Wicca. This is another academic book. It actually looks like a dissertation. I'm not sure if it's an ethnography or what's happening, but this author is using a Wiccan group in the Netherlands and possibly elsewhere as a case study to make whatever argument that they're making is. Again, pumped about it because, like, we don't usually think of the Netherlands when we think about Wicca. So getting that additional perspective, I think, is really exciting. Queens of the Wild by Ronald Hutton. I got to see him speak at Treadwell's. It was amazing. He signed a book to me. I could have cried. Like, it's Ronald Hutton, obviously. Witchcraft in England by Christina Hole. I picked this book up in London at just kind of like a random used bookstore, not an esoteric one. It was kind of a lucky find because I saw it subsequently and it was very expensive, and my copy was not expensive. This is 1945, I think. So I like to think that, you know, Gardner and his contemporaries were probably reading this and reading stuff like this. This book purports to be about like what witchcraft really was in England, like real stuff about how like real witches actually did things. So very exciting. It also has like really cute spooky illustrations. Maxine the Witch Queen. You've got to love Maxine Sanders. And I love like biographies, autobiographies, especially these kind of like sensationalized paperbacks, I think are really cool. She by herself would be interesting enough, but having kind of the additional benefit of what looks like kind of a sensational like biography or autobiography, I'm not sure, just makes it that much more fun. So super pumped. Anyway, there's a bunch of books. That's just a smattering. I got a lot more, but I won't bore you. So I hope you all are well, and I hope that maybe you saw something that you think would be cool that you could track down yourself and read and then talk to me about in the comments.